Welcome back, everyone. This is a really nice one, a 148 Blackburn Buccaneer S.2B. It is a big build, so I'm splitting it up into 3 parts. Today we're going to go through the cockpit, but this is what we're getting. Guinness Girl, Bahrain 1991, Desert Pink. Very cool, very different. This is the cockpit, so part 1, we're going to go through this. Part 2 will be the fuselage wings. We turn it into a plane. Part 3 is going to be the detailing, and there is some experimentation on my part just to get that desert pink right, and weathering. I think with any monotone plane for that matter, you really do have a bit of balance in trying to get break it up, I suppose. I think everyone knows what I mean. If it's just a solid color, it can look just wrong, and that brings its own difficulties. The scheme's out of the box. Like I say, I've done the Desert Pink Bahrain 1991. Out of the box, though, there's Lossymouth, there's Red Flag, and Germany. So there's a real mix of schemes here. There's also, in this case, a Royal Navy version. I've got one in the stash, and I'll do that at some point. Interestingly, because I've never done a Buccaneer, and I'm biased for the Royal Navy. Sorry, RAF people. I almost used this as my trial build. And in fairness to Airfix, the errors that crop up were mine. It is interesting when you haven't built a plane before that you learn these things. So, for example, the Bombay here, I never knew that on the Buccaneer, it's actually a rotating cradle. It's hard to see there because it's molded as one piece, but if you don't know about it, it's worth looking up and having a read on just how that Bombay works on a Buccaneer. Very cool. The molding, I think it's almost one of those modern things where they're all crisp and sharp in general. I think it's the way manufacturing's headed across the entire industry, really. It's just the way manufacturing's done now. So I'm doing the D scheme. I did and or a bit going through here and there, like, which one should I do? Because out of preference, interestingly, Gulf War wouldn't have been one of my first choices, but with a bit of thinking and almost trying to challenge myself, I decided to do something different. And I think that's always a good thing. What is it? Get out of your comfort zone. To me, the thought of doing something in Desert Pink would be like, why? But interestingly, it's almost one of those generational things. I was 19, 20 or something, 20 or so around that time. So to me, Gulf War, I shouldn't say it's familiar, whereas P-47s and Ds from my grandfather's time, Spitfires, there's a bit of attraction. But interestingly, my son's generation, I noticed, does have a lot more interest in that Gulf War period. It's just funny how that works out, and I've no idea why. Instructions, typical Airfix. Again, there's no surprises there. I think the only issue is that this is a relatively big build. It's not a beginner kit, that's for sure. So straight into the build. I've clipped out all the parts, clean up. There's minimal flash or problems. Like I say, the manufacturing, I think, is becoming almost standardized. So there's not going to be big surprises now across the manufacturers. I think it's become almost a process on how detailed they want to go on the CAD design side. There is a fair bit of weight to go in the nose. I use fishing sinkers, fishing weights, depending where you're from. It's interesting the way they've done this, because there's a separate capsule that goes into the nose section here, which is neat in a way. Maybe it's a bit of overkill. I would say it does take a fair bit of weight, and I would always, if you're uncertain and you don't have scales or anything like that, I'd always go too far. Put more weight in, because the last thing you want to do is have to mess around at the end of your build where you've got like a tail sitter. It's just, I've done it. I think everyone's done it, but it is a real pain and disappointment. I'm coming across Mr. Surfacer. I think I just, out of habit, just go with the 1500. It's easy. And The reason I'm using Surfacer is because I will be using a lot of Tamiya colors in this build. Just one of those ones, not necessarily a particular reason. It just seemed a bit easier, probably on my health for that matter, and on the mixing side. So for example, there you can see where I've got my own homebrew mix of Admiralty grey, which is really just a dark grey, depending on how pedantic you want to be. The instructions on that I'll put in the comment section or description. It's just grey, to be honest. It's olive drab for the seats. Interestingly, there is a bit of two-tone. There's a dark green and an olive green on the seats. I wouldn't get too hung up on this stuff. I think it becomes a little bit artistic. In two reasons I say that. One is that you're inside the cockpit. When it's all sealed up, no one's really going to notice. But I do like the idea of using some variation. It just gives a little bit more, to sound all arty, texture and so on. You can see here the moulding. It's very good. I'm no expert in that sense, but there's nothing I would complain about. The only way you're going to get better is if you start going aftermarket, but obviously you have to pay for resin. So out of the box, no, there's no complaints at all. And you can see that here. I've not used any aftermarket parts in this build. I probably will on my Royal Navy version when I get there. But yeah, I'm just always a little bit wary of, what would I say, going overboard, especially on something maybe not 100% into. And that sounds a bit strange, but like I say, Gulf War build is not really somewhere I'd normally go. This was almost a challenge and a little bit of a dare just to see if I could do something different. I think that's really where it comes from. My first choice, to be honest, if I buy another one of these, I'd like to do the red flag version. So here we are. We're just going into the painting of the cockpit seats. I don't have any issues with hand brushing. I'm quite happy doing this type of work. If anything, I find it a little bit relaxing. I think the trick is just to be patient. And actually, I'd also add to that to make sure you've got a steady hand. And that doesn't mean that you need to have a steady hand. I think it's about positioning yourself, so in that case, I'm right-handed, but my left hand, I normally try and get it in a position where it's, what would you say, structurally sound. So that I'm resting on the bench or however you want to put it, so that you get that stability. And then it's just really, I obviously practice like anything else, but I think just taking time. And I still make mistakes. I think if you don't worry too much and you can often just wipe it off, it's not a big deal. I just go for it, experiment, have fun, but take your time and be in a comfortable position. Decals go on here. I think the only bit, I'd say there's nothing tricky here, but you can see that there's some black panels on that grey. It depends. Take your time and you'll be fine. There's individual decals for parts of the panels. So this is the back seat. You can see there that the decals, there's actually a lot, maybe a dozen. This is a heads up. What I'm going to do here is use some UV resin. I have another fishing habit, so I had some resin there. What I'm using here is a UV light that I got off Amazon. I'd suggest use that. Don't use the expensive fly fishing stuff. That's crazy. You just go to Amazon, and it's really cool because you just dip it on, like you can see here, put it under the light, Yeah, and interestingly, the light stand I've got there, it was off Amazon, and women use it to do their nails. So you're not dealing with anything crazy here. Yeah, you dip it on, it's clear. You can even get coloured ones and all that. Put it under the light, press that, and it times for a minute or something. And you get that really nice glass effect. So you can see the cockpit is really moving along in this case. There's the seats are coming together. Well, there's the rear panel going on. You can see that UV effect. It does give what I think is a really nice glass effect. One thing I would say there is the instructions seem to have the radar screens and everything grey, which made no sense to me. So I did double check, and yeah, it was normal green screens like everything was till about 1989 or something. So yeah, as always, just double check if you're unsure. I think the ultimate reference is always going to be prototype photos. Again, there's a lot of these little decals. I do think they make a difference. There's some more instruments going in there. I think it's Mr. Decal Softener, and I do use Microsol. Especially on these little ones, I think the Microsol which it gives a more, at least my understanding, a bit more adhesion, does help on the smaller ones, because I think they can be a bit more prone to drying out and coming off. I think it's just there's, to be really technical, less stickiness. So yeah, you can see just the extra detail in this kit. I think one thing to keep in mind is this is not an 8-year-old's kit or a beginner's kit. It is fairly involved and detailed. Although I guess saying that, yeah, you could build it and not have to do all the details, but that's a waste, and it's not a cheap kit from memory. I bought it last year. I think Airfix had that bundle, the two Buccaneers, so I can't even remember what it cost, but I think that's still $100 in Australia, £50 in the UK, whatever that works out in USA, Canada. So the point is, it's not a cheap kit, it's an involved kit, and I wouldn't say it's super complicated, but I think it's a waste if you don't put in the effort to try and get at least some nice effect. So you can see the clear UV resin, how it gives that glass effect. The fit, yeah, no dramas at all. The only fit issues that I had was where I did something dumb. On the ejector handles or cables, yeah, that was just, to me, a paint over the black. There is a blue bar in there that you can sort of see. I have to admit, not sure why. So there's another example of my cheap Amazon UV light. There's torches, all sorts of stuff. But if you don't have it, I definitely wouldn't worry about spending lots of money. And of course, you can just use clear, clear Tamiya or whatever paints you're using. So that's the cockpit really at this point coming together. I'm really pretty happy with how this has come about. Like I said, most of it, it's just about taking time, taking a bit of care, and I guess in truth, sometimes making mistakes and then coming back and redoing bits. So that's how I get the panels to that sort of standard, I suppose, is that essentially when you watch a video, you're not necessarily seeing all the screw-ups. Although I do try and keep some honesty in that way. But there is a bit of, at times, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, especially when doing the panels. I'm just really coming over with some Tamiya panel liner, the enamel wash. It's just easy out of the bottle here. Just gives it that little bit of, I suppose, to me, a little bit of wear and tear in principle, but I think what it really does is just, again, breaks up those solid colours. It gives some shading and texture. I'm sounding very arty today, but yeah, I'm not sure how else to put it. So that's where you start to see how it's all coming together. and it is really a surprisingly big plane. What I'm also doing is being aware of the realities of all the dust in that region, and I can remember all the dramas of dealing with dust at that time. It was a bit of a shock to everyone, I think, from memory, the amount of dust. So again, I'm trying to give it a lived-in look, but not a beaten-up look. These are working machines that obviously had to do their missions each day. So I'm trying to give that vibe, I suppose. They're obviously super well maintained, but just the realities of where they are and what they're doing. So I've just used a pastel and almost just giving it a little bit of a layer of dust. But in this sense, I don't think it's necessarily the dust as such. Again, I think it's just giving it a little bit more breakup of tones and shades and all of that to be very arty. So there, at this point, I'm really pretty happy with how this has come together in that sense. But I'd say this probably took me about a week, just a few hours each evening. I think, to be honest, at the end of the day, that's most of the trick to this type of stuff is just being patient, not trying to do it all in one go. And most of my screw-ups are always when I'm trying to rush. I'm normally getting tired, it's getting late, I just want to finish something, and guaranteed I always end up regretting it when I get to that point. As an aside, don't forget to hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you've built this one because, like I say, for me, this is my first Buccaneer. I seriously don't even remember doing 72nd or anything as a teen. I'm not sure why. But yeah, let me know how yours have come along, and if you have done them previously. I know obviously it's not a new plane, but it's a new one for me in that sense. Oh, I did drill out the holes there because I am going to do the ladders for the crew. But yeah, you can see how this is all coming together. Again, the fit here is very, very nice. One thing I would say, and this is just almost a beware if you haven't built it, it's not even a beware. What a lot of these kits I notice, the fit can be very tight and there's almost a little bit of judging. So on the rear end there, it actually clips together, and you do need to force it. And I think that's, even for me, I was a bit like, I don't want to break anything. Am I pushing too hard? And then you really will hear the click sound as it seats properly. It's just interesting, and I think it's just part of, again, the way manufacturing is heading, probably across the board. But yeah, the fit is so good that they're putting these mated clips into the build. So definitely just be aware of that. I did on my end have to be I'm mucking this up, but I was a little bit cautious just because I had to push it till I heard it clip, and you're good. And again, in fairness to Airfix, it actually says it in the instructions. There's a picture or diagram that it goes click. So it's just one of those ones. It's almost like, live and learn. So this is the nose section. For those that don't know the Buccaneer, and this did surprise me, in perspective, this is at least the size of an F-14. It is a big plane. That did surprise me. It took up a lot of space on the bench. So especially if you're in USA or whatever, this is a pretty cool plane. It's a chunky plane. I don't know how else to say it. And that did surprise me. Just one of those ones that I didn't necessarily anticipate. I knew it was big, and I know Harriers are small and all that. Seen them, plenty of them over the years, but I was a bit naive when it come to the Buccaneer. The yellow there, whatever that to me is all I used for the ejector handles. What I'm doing now is just masking some of the HUD instrumentation. So there, this is all come together very, very nicely. I do hope you've enjoyed that. As I say, any questions, let me know. Thanks again. Come back for part 2. That'll be next week. And there she is. Really sweet, great build. Thank you again. Hope you enjoy it. Bye for now.